Hindu Nationalism Part 4. Evolution of nationalism through globalization. Hindu nationalism analogies would rather be with Sikhism in Iran, Russian Orthodoxy, or rather be Polish Catholicism. For that matter, in Huntington's America, US Christian fundamentalists, far from seeing themselves in some quasi-medieval way as members of a wider Christendom, are in general passionate, even the pathological American nationalist, obsessed with the idea of the United States, the bearer of divinely ordained cultural, political, and military mission in the world. The prospect of a world divided along such cultural nationalist lines is not exactly a cheerful one, and brings with it terrible dangers. It may be, however, that it does at least correspond more closely to the underlying realities than the myths that have dominated Western thinking since the end of Cold War. Well, I would like to provide you the highlights of this article. Point number one is that the election victories of BJP are in some respect the greatest moral and intellectual blow that Western liberalism has suffered in Eurasia since the end of Cold War. And point number two is that the Western media ignore the inconvenient truth for the sake of US geopolitical priorities, India being an increasingly important US ally, not just a strategic ally but also an economic ally, trade ally. Point number three, a key feature of the international scene in coming decades will be powerful nation states led by the elected yet authoritarian governments. Point number four, the fundamental principles of Hindu nationalism are completely opposed to those of liberalism. Point number five, the ascendancy of Hindu nationalism also gives considerable support to the famous clash of civilization theory of Samuel Huntington. Point number six, and the last point, of course, the prospect of a world divided along such cultural nationalists brings with terrible dangers. Well, it is not that the world does not know what happens in India. There has been, the world has become a global village. Now things are reported in walls, comments, and videos, images. Certainly the Western world is getting the images of genocide in India, slaughtering in India, victimization in India, but they turn a blind eye to it. They turn a blind eye as India is their strategic partner, economic partner, and a very large trade market, so to say, consumer trade market, and which this is something that they don't want to lose. And then there is a perception that probably India will fight against China in the name of these Western countries. This thoroughly is a misperception. If Pakistan had done it few decades ago, they may think that probably this time India would do it for them. But India or any of the other countries in the world would never do it for the Western world. No country would ever wage a war for the Western countries. It was a mistake done by Pakistan, and we are pretty sure no other country in the world would ever repeat the mistake. And what else India and China can prosper well, hand in hand in cooperation with each other. They are in many international organizations with each other, hand in hand. More so to talk about BRICS, where India and China do stand to preserve the rights and the interest of each other country.